Hello and welcome to WP. Well, the 14-year-old journalist Leo Puglisi, who has regularly appeared on this broadcast, finally got to interview Labor leader Anthony Albanese after his feisty Q&A with the Prime Minister. With the election coming in less than 2 weeks, what's his assessment of both leaders when it comes to answering the questions properly? We spoke with Leo about his assessment with the Prime Minister and opposition leader.
Well, I think both were overly respectful. They weren't patronising, so I commend them both for that. Look, the Prime Minister seemed very defensive in terms of some of the questions we asked him, especially when it related to lies and falsehoods. Anthony Albanese a bit less so, but he didn't answer directly on a lot of questions, which is why Roman McKinnon and myself pushed back on him. We said, it's a yes or no question, yes or no. And our Anthony Albanese also seemed to speak for a fair bit longer than the Prime Minister too. I think the PM came in at around 17 minutes, Anthony Albanese at about 25 minutes. But yeah, both, as I said, respectful, not patronising, and I fully commend the leaders of the two major parties for actually speaking to a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old in the middle of an election campaign.
So what do you think of Mr. Albanese's recent, you could say, gaffe when it comes to the NDIS policies of the opposition?
Look, it was interesting. It was interesting how a number of journalists handled it too, which I know caused a bit of controversy. Look, I'm not in the interest of constantly platforming gaffes day in, day out as our top story. There's something that also needs to be looked at, and while I also am not trying to do the gotcha journalism thing, it's also important that a leader would know this. I do know there was an interview with, I think it was a candidate, and this was back in 2013, where he was asked what are the points and he just couldn't answer them. And I guess it was sort of a moment like that, but Anthony Albanese, he did eventually answer it, which was something, but the whole situation where you had multiple journalists almost yelling at him, it was quite odd to see, really.
Do you think it's impacted his chances of becoming Prime Minister?
Well, look, if it happened, maybe a week before, I reckon there might be voters who changed their mind on who to vote for. I know postal voting is about to start soon, so we should be cautious of that. I don't think people are going to look back at the two gaffes we've seen, NDIS and unemployment rate, and say this is what lost him the election. I don't think it's like a John Hewson, whatever his name is, birthday cake GST moment, but it's certainly something that I guess the Liberals are going to continue hammering him at. They have been going on social media continuously, the unemployment one, and I presume they will go at him over the NDIS one.
So who is your bet on winning this year's federal election?
It's a good question. It's a tough one. Look, I don't want to make a defining decision. However, I don't think there's going to be a landslide, and I would say either Liberals scrape in or there's a Labor minority. I think a Labor minority is more likely than a Labor majority, and in terms of individual things, I do predict there'll be a number of the so-called teal independents elected. Monique Ryan, I definitely think, will be elected in Kooyong, my seat, and then I also think there are a number of others, including Allegra Spender, who also have a strong chance. Zali Steggall, she's almost 100% certain to stay on with Catherine Deves, effectively not campaigning now, and teal independent. I think the crossbench is where it's going to be at, and both parties are probably going to have to realise that, yes, we are going to have to, figure out who we're going to do a deal with, because even with the Prime Minister attacking the teal independents, he won't rule out doing a deal with them, and I know Labor's been a bit less strong with their criticism of the teal independents, if any. They're also not exactly ruling out a deal with them. I think they ruled out one with the Greens, but if working with the Greens stops them from forming governments, they'll work with the Greens, let's be honest.
Do you think that WA will play a major part in deciding who forms government?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting because we know traditionally, and I know you're, as someone who lives in WA, a bit more of an expert, but Labor has definitely been a bit more dominant. We saw that in the 2019 election, Liberals still held on to their federal seats while Labor retained a lot of supports on the state level. Now there is a lot more support for Labor on a state level now with the incredible victory for Mark McGowan last year, which just destroyed the Liberals in the state. I mean, the Nationals are now the opposition party. So I reckon, yeah, we could see a few Liberal losses there. I think Christian Porter's old seat, is definitely something that could change hands to Labor. Of course, he's not running. But yeah, WA definitely, I reckon there will be a few seats there to watch, Pearce especially.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think people should really just watch these interviews to make up their own mind. And also, I do point out we also spoke to the Greens leader Adam Bandt too, so they're all available. 6 News YouTube channel, search 6 News AU to find it.
And now, here's AMA WA spokesman Dr Andrew Miller with his weekly COVID-19 update and commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time and happy Mother's Day. Hope all your mums out there have been getting spoiled. Mine certainly has been. It's been a beautiful autumn day here in Perth. Unfortunately, we still are seeing a rise in cases across the country, about 35,000 in the last day in Australia, and this is putting an immense load on the healthcare workers. We have about 280 people in hospital in Western Australia, which is a big extra load, particularly because it slows down everything else, and this is at a time when the government are very keen to get back to reducing the wait lists, which of course have blown out during COVID shutdowns. And we just don't have the staff to be doing that right now. It's very, very difficult to get all of this done, and it's putting people under enormous stress. So, and including, of course, most importantly, the patients who've been waiting a long time to have essential elective surgery undertaken. So we're going to need a lot of love and care for our healthcare workers, and they should be getting better conditions than they are. See, the ANF has been coming out and saying that nurses want masks to be made mandatory again as soon as hospital numbers hit 300, and that seems like a wise thing to do to slow down the transmission of this virus. Wearing a mask in a shopping centre or when you duck in to other public places, it's not that difficult, as we all know. It's not really that big a burden, and we should be balancing where we are with people suffering disease and death against these simple kind of measures. Vaccination for children, looking hopeful that we'll get that in the second half of this year, and we really want to avoid infections in kids. There's a question around hepatitis around the world now being caused by COVID in young children. Not answered yet. We don't know exactly what the cause is, but it's certainly one of the plausible reasons why we're suddenly seeing a rash of these around the world at the same time. But of course there's been huge numbers of COVID infections in unvaccinated kids, particularly under 5. So best to be alert, not alarmed, and to try to avoid ongoing infection. One of the schools in Perth, of course, suggested that they want to reduce staff illness, they want to reduce student illness by going back to masking in classrooms where people can't socially distance, and the Education Minister saying that that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do, and of course it is. It's a sensible thing to do, and we're not going to be told by the government what to do so much anymore. We need to get on ourselves with the job, trying to avoid COVID infections when we can. Stay safe out there, look after one another. Thanks for your time.
And that's WP for this week. We'll be back again next time, but for now, it's back to you, Ivan O'Malley.
Thanks, Nelson. And now, here's Connor with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. Tonight on 6 News, Anthony Albanese says he's open to a cabinet reshuffle if Labor wins the federal election, but adds that he thinks colleagues are worthy of their current roles. Plus, less than 2 weeks to go until Australians head to the polls with support for independents and minor party candidates going. But who will you be voting for? 6 News unveils a new viewer poll where you can have your say. And the mother who pushed for a royal commission into veteran suicide, Julianne Finney, explains why she's now running for the Senate in South Australia and slams the response she's received from the government. You can see full details on those stories and much more on our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News Australia to find us, or on our website 6newsau.com. For now though, guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Connor. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.